welcome back to the Build Your Bankroll podcast. The AFC and NFC championships were decent for us, not great, but we'll take it. 2-1 for understudy, 1-2 for puck, 4-2 for prolific, a sizzling one for him. 7-5 for the week, we'll take it. Wasn't fantastic, but it was decent. So, we got to thank our listeners yet again. Episode 3 and 4, by far our most listened to episodes. We're learning, we're growing, but most importantly, we're thankful. We appreciate the feedback. Thanks for making it great. We really enjoy it, and this has been a good learning experience for all of us.
All right, welcome back to the Knowledge Drop, episode 5. We've been getting a lot of listeners DMing us, messaging us, asking us a lot of questions about teasers. What are teasers? How do we play teasers? So this week we wanted to spend some time, talk to you a little bit about the basics here. And then I know once we get into it, Prolific's got a pretty unique teaser that he wants to talk about specific to the Super Bowl and the NFL. So simplistically, a teaser, you can maneuver the line 6.5, up to 7 points in whatever favor you want. If it's for the underdog, if it's for the favorite, if it's for the total points. And you can do this both in football. You can also do this in basketball. A couple things here, a couple rules that they have for teasers. Minimum, you have to have a 2-leg play, and there's a maximum of 10 legs that you can play. And typically when you do this, you're going to be moving the line. Let's say you're going to take a 6-point teaser. It's obviously going to move the line whichever way you want it to go, 6 points. And on the 6-point teasers, your odds are likely, or they will be, at -120. And for every half point, it's going to move. So 6.5 becomes -130. 7 points becomes -140. So the more points that you're taking, the worse that the odds are, or the more that you're going to have to pay to get that bet placed. So I typically do this in football a lot here. I've done it in basketball a few times, but it's a great way, again, that you can maneuver the line. Hopefully it's going to put you in a position to be successful and you can win that bet. Prolific, let's talk a little bit about your unique thing here specific to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so this, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's called a Wong teaser, W-O-N-G, Wong teaser. But essentially, it focuses specifically in football and specifically on either favorites that are 7.5 to 8.5 point favorites or underdogs that are 1.5 to 2.5 point underdogs. And here in the Super Bowl, we've got Kansas City as a 1.5 point underdog, so it's a good example to talk about a Wong teaser. But essentially, you take 1.5, add 6 to that, you make it 7.5, and you've now played through 2 key numbers. So you've played through 3, you've played through through 7, and you're sitting at 7.5. So that's why these numbers are so critical. And then if you're betting on the favorite for a Wong teaser at 7.5 or 8.5, it's basically the other way around. So you're coming down through 7, down through 3, and you're at 1.5 or 2.5. So that's essentially what you're getting at from a Wong teaser, and that's what that means. If you hear someone say, "Hey, I played a Wong teaser this weekend," that's what they're talking about. So a little bit of data or some stats on Wong teasers and just teasers in general. So to break even on teasers, you need to win 72.5% of the time. So 72.5% of the time you place a teaser bet, you need to win to break even. These Wong teasers, over the past 10 years or so, they're hitting at a clip of 76%. So you are starting to see books adjust odds and even move numbers and not go to 7.5 or 8.5 or not go to 1.5 or 2.5 just to protect themselves from these types of teasers. So these are a good way to get out of game. I think it's potentially a good way to get at the Super Bowl with the Chiefs, taking them up to 7.5. But we'll get more into that with our plays here a little bit later. So that's teasers, folks. All right, gentlemen, let's jump into the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 57, Glendale, Arizona. We've got Philly, 1.5-point favorite. The total sitting at 51. A couple of general comments just about the game before we jump in and give our handicaps. Last week, we talked a little bit about the officiating crews and how they leaned and how many penalty flags they threw and were they over, under, et cetera. So we've got Carl Cheffers and his crew. They're going to be the officiating crew for the Super Bowl. They actually threw the most penalties in the NFL this season and last season. So expect the flags to be flying. There's going to be reviews. It's probably going to be a slow game. So thankfully, we expect the Super Bowl to be slow anyway. So it's not going to impact that. But it is going to be a slow game. There's going to be a lot of flags. That being said, Cheffers and his crew are 10-7 to the under, with an average of 42.5 points scored in the games that they officiate, which is the sixth lowest amongst officiating crews across the NFL. So favorites are 8 and 9, so no real edge there. It's pretty much a 50-50 shot on the underdogs and favorites just for this officiating crew. Just a couple of trends for the over-under and the spread for these two teams. When the total sits anywhere from 49.5 to 52.5, the Chiefs and Eagles, they combine 11 and 6 to the under. And Chiefs have been under in 4 of their last 5. Eagles have gone under in 5 of their last 6. So a lot of trends pointing to the under in this game. From a spread point, against the spread point of view, Kansas City, they're 3-2 in their last 5 ATS. Philly, they're 2-3 in their last 5 ATS, but 2-0 in the playoffs. And we know Hurts was kind of banged up towards the end of the season there. So not a whole lot of key trends for the spread, but certainly some pointing us towards the under. So with that said, let's jump into our handicap, fellas. What do you guys got?
I'm actually going to stay away from the total on this one. I hear you loud and clear. Points to the under. I hate the fact that Mahomes and Hurts can score so rapidly, so quickly. It scares me. No total for me. But what I do like, however, is the Eagles -1.5. If you just look at positions alone, I think the Eagles win almost every category. Wide receiver banged up for KC. Hardman out. You've got Schuster, who's struggling big time. Defensive line for the Eagles is extraordinary. You know, they do the constant rotation, so they're always fresh and energetic. I think they bring a lot to the table there. And I'm probably the Lone Ranger on this, but I'm going to take a healthier Jalen Hurts over Mahomes. No question that the Eagles will lose the battle with experience and coach. Obviously, the Super Bowl is nothing new recently for the Kansas City Chiefs. So the only other one that I would say is a close battle probably is the offensive line. If you look at the offensive line as a whole, position ratings, KC has 4 of their offensive linemen in the top 20 in their respective positions. And then also defensive backs, this is a no-brainer. This goes to the Eagles as well. I think for me, I would take this game at 2.5 as well. A couple things that I really liked when I broke it down a little bit. I think there's an opportunity to expose Kansas City in a few spots. This year, Miles Sanders has been incredibly successful to the right, 5.6 yards per carry, which I think is an area that they could excel against KC. Also, Devontae Smith, 12% of his breakdowns have been through, the wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, but they've moved 25% of his action to the slot, which I think is also an area where KC really struggles. And I see there's a lot of opportunities for Jalen Hurts to really make things happen. He is one of those guys, adversity-wise, I think a lot of people forget his college days, but was benched. He's been through some tough situations. And although he has not played in the Super Bowl, I don't think this is going to be too big of a stage for him. I think he's going to show up. He's going to deliver. I like everything about Eagles at -1.5. Puck, what do you think?
Well, I mean, it certainly could happen. I think there's some interesting stats out there, especially for the Chiefs side. You know, you look at Andy Reid. He's 3-0 against the spread against the Eagles. Now, I realize this isn't Super Bowl, but in 2021, 2017, and 2013, he's beat the Eagles. So, I mean, he just going back and through history, he's got the edge when it comes to playing his old team. The one thing that I was going to say here, too, is there's some really interesting stats when it comes to both of these teams. Coming into the game, they're both 16-3. They're both the number 1 seed. And throughout this season, they've both scored 546 points. So you talk about evenly matched. I mean, it's 1 against 1, best on best. The one thing that I want to go back to your point, understudy, is I'm not so sure that both of these quarterbacks are healthy. Obviously, we've seen
For
Mahomes
sure, I agree.
with the ankle. Yeah, but I'm hearing rumors that Jalen Hurts, he might be going to the surgery table on that shoulder pretty soon after this game, no matter what. So I've been hearing just kind of, through my sources here, that they may be handing off quite a bit to the running backs, Sanders and Scott, getting a lot of the carries. So, as we get into this, I'm sure we'll probably talk through some different plays and player props and all that kind of stuff. But something to consider there. Even look at last week. Brock Purdy gets hurt. All they can do is run. Not saying that that's going to happen, but with both of these quarterbacks somewhat injured, there could be some plays with backup quarterbacks.
Hate how it happened, but I was on that Brock Purdy under passing attempts. You're welcome. Thank you.
That's a cash.
Yeah, it was cash for you, and unfortunately it bit Puck on his play over 216.5 passing yards. So
true.
We won one and we lost one on that one.
So, hey, listen, real quick on the Jalen Hurts note, and I hear you. He is not 100%. There's no question about it. Mahomes isn't either. So I guess that gets into the question of, just QB battle alone. Who do you want? Who do you want to support your team? Obviously, everyone's on Mahomes. I get it. There's no reason not to be. The guy has proven time and time again. For me personally, I'm still in on the Jalen Hurts side. No question about it. He has proven to me time and time again all year that he excels under pressure positions. Nothing really fears him. And quite honestly, I said this the other week, but my trust level in Hurts is higher than Mahomes right now. And I will stick with that through and through. But what do you guys think about the QB situation?
Yeah, I agree with you. The fact that Hurts is just exceptional because he can do a lot more with his legs than what Mahomes can. So I think that's the one area where Hurts is going to impact the game in a much different way than what Mahomes can. Obviously, Mahomes is a wizard in the pocket, and he figures out how to spin and twist and roll out left, roll out right, throw a no-look pass. I mean, he's phenomenal in the pocket and phenomenal getting away from pressure. But the Eagles have 4 guys with double-digit sacks this season. And Hassan Reddick, he is a freak athlete. That dude, you're not going to escape. You're not going to escape him as he's bearing down on you. So I think the quarterback matchup, Mahomes obviously has the experience. I think Mahomes overall is a better quarterback, but I think Hurts is really close, and I think his dual threat ability, especially with Mahomes on his ankle, and I think there's still going to be some effects from that ankle. I think it's closer than what people think. And then, understudy, you touched on it just from a positional advantage. The Eagles, I think everywhere else, they have so many different advantages in the secondary, their defensive line, their linebackers, the wide receivers, the running backs. So many positions favor the Eagles. You put that around a fairly even quarterback matchup. I'm leaning Eagles as well. Eagles -1.5 is one of my plays as well. And for most of the reasons, that we've already talked about in terms of just Eagles are favored, or they have the advantage in several different positions.
No doubt. And I think Reddick is one of those guys that goes overlooked. He's not really talked about that much, to be honest, but for what he produces on the field, man, he's a savage. So
I was just going to ask a random question. Who do you guys think has the better kicker in this game? And does that matter to you?
Kicker? I mean, I will tell you this. I know who the Chiefs kicker is. I don't even know who the Eagles kicker is.
How about this? I don't even look at kickers. I could tell you no idea who either kicker is. So let's keep rolling. How about that?
Well, I'm just thinking if it comes down to your -1.5, I mean, that kick's going to be important. So Butker versus Elliott kicking.
It's valid. I was so focused on the QBs and the coaching matchup and everything else. I guess kicking is just a product I wasn't even considering in this contest. But you're right, no doubt.
Here's another area where that gets me leaning towards the Eagles is the turnover edge. Eagles have a huge turnover edge in this one. Kansas City is ranked 24th in giveaways. Philly is ranked 3rd in takeaways. And then on the other end of that, Philly is 5th in giveaways, and Kansas City is 24th in takeaways. So they're on opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of giving the ball away, taking the ball away. Philly has a huge edge there, and I think that's going to come into play. Eagles are going to protect the ball. Kansas City is going to get 1 or 2 turnovers. I think that leans heavy in the Eagles' favor. The other thing I talked about a little bit, but the Eagles have the #1 pass rush in the league. They have one of the best cornerback duos in football, and that's what you need to beat Mahomes. You've got to have a fantastic defensive line. You've got to have top-end corners who can cover, and that's what the Eagles have. I think they're built
I'd add to that,
beat
second most sacks
Chiefs
of all time for this past year with the Eagles. So they are tenacious and obviously incredibly disruptive. So the turnover piece obviously makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And it's different preparing for the Eagles than it is for any other team in the NFL. You
no
can't
doubt.
tell me that they have the #1 rushing attack in the league. You can't tell me that any other team, other than maybe the Ravens when Lamar is healthy, has this type of an impact. They're
literally an octopus. You're hit from 8 different angles. You have no clue where you're going to get disrupted or crushed by the Eagles. I love it. Bring me the Eagles. Let's go higher on the units. You know what I mean? See, here's one thing to mention. You guys don't know this, but you'll learn it quickly. I am not a daily bettor like these fools. I mean, prolific sometimes delivering 30 bets per evening. Come on. Who's got time for that? I'm kind of a, 3 bets here and there. I might get a little dicey on the Eagles. I really feel good about this. I'm going to probably take the units at least up to 5. It could be more. We'll see how it goes. But I'm all in on this.
So I was going to make a comment here on the game itself. You guys had talked a little bit about the slow starts. Looking back, now I went back as far as 16 Super Bowls here. The last 16 Super Bowls, the record is 7-3-6 to the under. So this is slotted. This is first quarter. First quarter under 10 is what it's showing for Sunday. And if you go back and look at these stats, it's 7-3-6 in the last 16 if it's at 10. So I'm going to be playing this at under 10. I like this number. If it was at 9.5, I'd be a lot more resistant to playing it because you've got the 7-3 after the first, and that's a push. So you're not losing money there. But
I love to hear that. First quarter unders are just fun anyway. So I can guarantee you I'll have some action on that just from what you told me.
Yeah, and the Super Bowl games are generally, typically they're pretty slow starting. And to Prolific's earlier point, if there's a lot of flags and punts in the first quarter, these teams have to figure out what the referees are going to be calling for the game too. So, it goes back. We've said it now a couple weeks in a row. Tick-tock in the first quarter. Keep that clock moving, and let's see, hopefully under 10 in that first quarter. So that'll be one of my official plays for this game.
Awesome.
Yep.
I've got a couple player props.
I love that play.
rollout or prolific, did you have anything you wanted to add before we move to some player props?
Yeah, just one other play that I was going to do, just tied into that under in the first quarter. I'm taking the under 51.5 for the game, and it's probably my favorite play. I mentioned the officiating crew; they're 10-7 to the under. This stat kind of blew my mind when I heard it a little bit earlier on the early edge, but Andy Reid after a bye is 27-7-1 to the under. So in addition to that, he's got some crazy stats, ATS and straight up wins, et cetera, as well after a bye, but 27-7-1 to the under after a bye week for Andy Reid. So I'm also playing the under for the game at 51.5. So understudy, jump into some of your props.
I will. Love to see you get on some under action. That's awesome to hear. So let's start with Jalen Hurts. Puck pointed out earlier, probably going to undergo surgery here soon. I think he has every reason to leave everything on the table. It's a Super Bowl. It's Jalen Hurts. Let's go. So over 31.5 pass attempts. I'm for this, right? Remember, with his injury, there's an inability to throw the ball deep. So what does this mean? This means a lot of stuff out in the flats, some easy, quick slants, whatever it may be. I think over 31.5 is very feasible. Furthermore, you have a very competitive game where he's going to be forced to do more with his arm, not just his legs. So I think this is a great spot for him to go over 31.5 pass attempts. Secondarily, let's talk about Pacheco. So you've obviously got an interesting situation on the KC side. We talked about it earlier. Schuster, Hardman, all seriously, they're not 100%. One of them potentially out. So this obviously forces Pacheco into some more action. If you look at the prior game with the Bengals, 57% of the snap count he was in. 6 targets for 59 yards. They're going to become dependent on Pacheco. They expect a lot of him. He has become one of their featured backs now with things happening. I like Pacheco to go over 16.5 reception yards. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities with him. Remember, Mahomes is also a little bit not as mobile as he used to be. So I think a safe play is going to be Pacheco out in the flats. It's probably going to happen more often than we think. Those are my 2 player props for this week.
Yeah, the only other play that I've got here is just an overall game prop, and it's a little bit goofy. I'm probably not going to play a full unit here. I'm probably just going to do some sprinkle action. But in the last 8 Super Bowls, the coin toss winner has gone on to lose the game. So very interesting stat there.
Wow.
You know, obviously I'm going to watch the coin flip. Yeah, I'm going to see who wins it, and then I'm just going to sprinkle. I don't know what it's going to be. Maybe 20,
Puck
25
provides
bucks.
about one ridiculous stat per week. That is for sure the one for this week. Coin toss, the loser 8 in a row. I mean, it's an exceptional angle and something that maybe I'm entertained by. Maybe I get in there too.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be like prolific.
It's something goofy.
Every night. Here we go.
Yes, it's something fun, but it makes you watch the game, and obviously you see the coin toss. There's the pageantry and all that stuff that leads up to it. So that was one of them, and then I'm not going to officially play this on here, but I think it was a pretty cool stat that in the last 5 Super Bowls, there has not been a defensive or special teams touchdown. So if that's something that piques your interest, I'm sure that there's a book out there that, you can go out, you can play these, but there's a lot of different props and different goofy stuff. I would just say be careful what's out there. They make a lot of money on these props because people typically don't play them. But, it's another cool stat to look at and at least think about.
Yeah, I may look at the other side of that defensive or special teams touchdown with the stat that I threw out around the Eagles having the huge turnover edge and KC kind of were 24th in the league and turned the ball over. They turn it over. So I think we're going to see some turnovers in this game, and that could lead to a potential score. But you probably get some pretty good plus odds on taking a defensive touchdown in this game.
You're probably going to get some exceptional value on the turnover piece.
Yeah.
Especially to your point, Puck, about the past Super Bowls with really no action on special teams and turnovers.
2 player props for me. Same player. Dallas Goedert. You heard me last last episode I went under his receiving yards total when they were playing the Giants, and that had everything, or the 49ers. Sorry about that, but that had everything to do with the 49ers linebackers and safeties. They were phenomenal. The Chiefs just aren't that, and I think the Chiefs linebackers, what they're going to be worried about is Jalen Hurts running the ball, and that's going to get Goddard open. He did go over his receptions prop last week. I think he's going to go over that again this week. That's at 4.5. So I'm playing Goddard over 4.5 receptions, and I'm playing Goddard over 47.5 receiving yards. So I'm on both of Dallas Goedert's props. I think he's got a big game ahead of him, and I think KC is going to be focused on shutting down A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and Miles Sanders, and I think that's where Dallas Goedert comes into play, and he gets his in this game. So I think he's in for a big night.
Love it, fellas.
So
I think that hits probably most of the player prop angles and angles of this Super Bowl as a whole. Any closing thoughts for either of you?
I think it's going to be a great game. Going to be a great game. Halftime show is going to be great. We got Rihanna coming out. So I think just overall, it's going to be an awesome night.
Yep, absolutely. It's going to be fun. Make sure you get your favorite, wings, chili, whatever your favorite food is. Make sure we get that flowing. Put the women and children to bed. We're going to watch Rihanna at halftime, and it should be a fun one.
Happy Super Bowl week. Let's recap the picks for today's episode. Well, actually, I'm going to give you the winners. If you want to win, listen to these following picks. Eagles, minus 1.5. Jalen Hurts player prop over 31.5 pass attempts. And finally, Pacheco over 16.5 reception yards. Fellas, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm taking 4 different plays here. I've got the under 51.5. That's my favorite play. That's the one I'm excited about. I definitely see this game going under 51.5. I'm also on the Eagles minus 1.5. I love that play. I think the Eagles are the better squad here. And then for my player props, I'm taking Dallas Goedert over 4.5 receptions, and Dallas Goedert over 47.5 receiving yards. So those are my 4 plays for this game.
Yeah, and I'm just going to close it out. I've got 2 quick plays. Under 10 points in the first quarter. And then I'm just going to sprinkle on that coin toss. Whoever wins it, I'm going to bet against that team. I'm going to throw $20-25 on them and just see what happens.
Love it. Thank you all for just giving us a shot. Yet again, week over week, our listeners continue to improve in volume, but we just really appreciate giving us a shot and doing the things we love to do. Again, please follow us at Twitter at BYBR Podcast, at Puck_BYBR, at Prolific_BYBR, and at Understudy_BYBR. My apologies. As you guys know, I typically have a Cadillac mic this week. Obviously, it's flipped to the Prius. Had some technical difficulties. I will be back with Cadillac in full style. We'll be ready to deliver some more information. We look to serving you more in the future, and thank you again. Have a great week.